Hi, this is Akovia, and today we're going to be looking at Gimp. Uh, got a fresh operating system with a fresh copy of Gimp. This comes with this Ubuntu operating system. Um, First, let's look at what we got here. 2.86. I'm using 2.810, but I had to compile that myself. This is what is available from the repositories now. I've had this open already, but this is what you'll see when you first open up Gimp. It comes with separated windows by default. This is the old way Gimp used to look before they added single window mode. So most people will want to go to Windows single window mode. And you can adjust your toolbars this way, find what works for you. We can get into adding tabs and customizing this to fit your needs later. We're going to start off by looking through the preferences and just kind of get set up and ready to work. One of the first things I like to do is to up my undo memory. So I have many steps of undo, but it's going to determine on how much RAM that you have available. 128 will give you a long list of undo levels, so that works good. Let's see. Interface, you can change your language here. Most of this stuff is fine at defaults. We'll get into this later, but I also like to use dynamic keyboard shortcuts, and I'll show you that a little bit later. You can also configure your keyboard shortcuts there's a direct link under edit, so you don't have to come all the way in here to do that. Themes, I like to use a dark theme. We can get into that later. I've actually had a website open earlier where you can download some themes. Right here, just do a search for this, and I've used this one on my other installation. There's a couple good ones in there that I like. Alright, help system, I'm not sure how it's handled on Windows, but even if you don't have a locally installed copy, you can always access it through your browser. And let's see, tool options. If you make any different adjustments and settings for a certain image, you can have it save on exit. I don't like to do that. I like to start fresh every time. Everything in here is pretty good for default working. You can add different elements under here, so if you want to have access to your gradients and your brushes and show which one's active, you can even have a picture of whatever image is up. I don't really need those. This is interesting though. These are all your tools that'll be available in your tool palette here. So if there's some you don't use, you can turn it off here, and some that you would like to have, you can turn them on here. I access 90% everything I do with shortcuts, so none of that really matters to me. I've actually removed a few on mine. Default image, you can set up what your default image is here. You have a list of default templates, common sizes that are used. I've actually set up some fan art templates, though I hardly ever do anything from scratch. I usually take the image and modify it, but if you want to do it that way, you can set up your own templates, have the size and resolution that you like. Default grid, not really doing much in grids. You will use it from time to time, and you can set those settings at will. All this looks pretty good. One thing I like to do is add a crosshair to my pointer, just for being more accurate. Now this is a good one. These are all your default appearance options. Now personally, I will have layer boundary turned off for myself, but it's probably good to start out with that turned on so you can see what's going on. I can't think of a good reason to show the grid unless you needed it. And everything else, I turn off scroll bars on mine as well since I don't use them, but find your preference. Canvas padding mode, we're definitely going to talk about that later, and we can come and set that up, but I'll show you an easy way to get into that before then. This is just basically your information that shows with every image up here. That's your title format, and this is your status bar, which we have nothing open, but that'll go down here, so you can have different information available to you. This is the default checkerboard pattern for transparency. The default looks really good. You can change it here if you like, though. I'm not really setting up any color management for the type of work. We're not doing printing, but if you want to, this is where you can set it up. I'm going to skip that for now because we're going to come back to input devices. Window management, if you go into single window mode, you shouldn't have to worry about this. Focus and save window positions on exit, always a good idea. Great defaults there. Your folders are kind of important. This is where Gimp will find all your add-ons. So everything it ships with is already available, and it'll be in your user directory in Linux, and Gimp, or excuse me, in Windows, that'll be what's under your program files. Now it sets up folders for you on Linux under your home folder. In Windows that would be, I can't even remember anymore, it's been so long, but it's your user settings folders for all your programs. We can take a look at where these are. Like I said, this is all fresh, so let me change it to my preferences. And we're going to want to see hidden files. In Linux, having a dot before the file or folder name makes it hidden by default. So here's our GIMP 2.8 folder under our home folder. So this is our settings folder. And as you can see, it goes ahead and sets all the different types of folders that you can add to it. There's nothing in there, but if we want to add brushes, we'd add them under here. If we want to add gradients, so on and so forth. So you need to be aware of that. You can also find basically your setup files. All your settings will be held in these files, your themes and so on and so forth. You also have a themes folder for extra themes. And I should explain this. This will show all my key presses. I don't always remember to go through the menus. So if I hit a key to access a tool or a filter, you'll be able to see what I hit. I still haven't added my shortcuts to this since it's a fresh install. So we'll see what all the defaults are, and I'll show you how to change them as you go. So most of the defaults are good, and we can work with that. So getting right into just some basic moving around, let's create a new image, and the default's fine for what we want to do. Now this is what I was talking about, the layer boundary. If you have more than one layer, and it can be a different size. So let's take a paintbrush, we'll paint on this, and I can crop this layer. Actually, I want it here. I have shortcuts for this, so hang with me. Auto crop, no, not image, I want layer. Auto crop layer. See how the boundary dropped? That's how big this layer is now. If we go to the move tool, we can move this around within that. hit Control Z to undo, now you can see how the layer changed sizes. So layers are nothing more than images stacked on top of each other. And we can actually change the opacity, make that lighter and darker, so on and so forth. But you decide. It can trip you up if you don't know how big your layer is, if you're not good at keeping track of them. Having the layer boundary up until you're used to it is probably the best idea. Now another setting I like is, and you can access it here, is we can snap to the canvas edges. Now when we drag this, it'll pop right into place. Same with this. Bang bang. Another thing you'll want to have access to is your guides. You just drag these out from the rulers. So if you want to align or create your own objects of a certain size, having your guides are very important. And you can put them away. You can move them when they're out. Very handy. So you can also get rid of them. You can turn them off from showing them here. Actually, I have a shortcut in let's see, we should have guides here. There we go. Remove all guides. You can create a shortcut to that. In Linux, one of the ways to use dynamic shortcuts is you can just hit a key as you're hovering the command. So now 4 will get rid of all guides. There we go. So one of the things I said we come back to the device controllers. I want to show you with painting. We're going to delete that layer for now. Let's paint a little bit, because paintbrush is not only used for painting, it's used for erasing, and so many other tools are based on the paintbrush. So getting to know the paintbrush is very important. These 4 paintbrushes are going to be the most important tools you use to start. If you're a painter, obviously you can start messing around with the other ones, but these are more tools than actual paintbrushes, the way that I use them. You'll notice that they're labeled by hardness, so they go from very fuzzy to solid. So if we get paintbrushes, P is the default for paintbrush. If you hover, you can see it there. And that's a solid paintbrush. And we'll go down to the 25% paintbrush. So one of the things you'll be doing a lot is changing the size of your paintbrush, especially when erasing or doing something similar. So to change the size of our paintbrush, there's quite a few ways to do this. One of the ways is just drag the slider to about the size that you want. That's okay. You can use your mouse wheel up and down over here. You can use the spinners at the end, or you can just highlight that and enter your own value. All of these are well and good, but I like something a little bit more intuitive. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our mouse wheel up and down to change the size of our paintbrush. And the way that we do this is, I wonder if I can access it right here. I've never tried it this way. I'm going to show you the way that I know. So we go to Preferences, Input Controllers, and here's all of our available controllers. If you have, say, a tablet, this will show up in here. It'll scan your operating system and look for any type of input controllers. Mouse wheel's already over here. We want to double click on that. We want to open up this window, and these are all the functions with the mouse wheel. The default for what I want to use is to select next brush. I barely ever use that unless you're a painter. And if you are, you may want to select something else. This is just my preference, but I'm going to change this. So instead of select next brush, I want to, let's see, change size, increase brush size for wheel up. Yes, I'm on wheel up. Okay, increase brush size, and we're going to go down here and decrease. Actually, I can probably just do size and find it. There we go. Alright, so we'll close that, and now we're all set up. So this was the default way. And now we should be able to use our mouse wheel up and down, and it makes it a lot easier than going out here every time to just go up a few notches or down a few notches. We can just do it like this. So now we can paint and change. One other thing that you should learn is how to navigate your images. Very important. Let's grab an image and see what we have over here in the activity stream. I'm sure we can find something. Alright. Look at that, one of my faves. So one of the ways we can do this, I'm using an extension called Imagus, which will automatically zoom up your images. But we're going to copy the image. This is one of the easiest ways to get something into Gimp. And the default for pasting as a new image, I believe, is Control-Shift-V. There we go. Real easy. Grab something off the web. You can also, oops, not the window I wanted. You can also just drag. There's a couple ways to do this. You can drag onto the same image, and that'll make it another layer. And see, I only grabbed the thumbnail. I didn't grab the full size. And if you want to drag it into a new image, where you want to drag it is up here. See how that box kind of highlights? You can drag any image into that, and it'll open it up in a whole new image, in a tab in this case. So we're going to close that. We're going to delete that layer. So here we go. Now it's a very small image. I think that was a thumb. Let's see, we can look. 1000 by 562. Yeah, it wasn't a background image. But the way to navigate and work on images is a combination of panning and zooming. A few ways you can do this. You can hold the middle mouse button. Very easy. You can also just hold the space bar. Very easy. And to zoom, just hold your control and use your mouse wheel. And doing this together, you can really get to a part of an image that you want to see at the zoom level you want to see. And you're not restricted. There's many other ways to navigate around images. I believe there's even a tab. Add tab. Let's see here. Navigation. Yeah, you can do it this way too, but that's just a waste of space. Once you get used to doing it this way, it's just so much easier, and I think you'll find it more intuitive. Alright, I don't know how we're doing on time here, but what I do want to show you is the filters and some of the other menus. Your file, just go over some stuff. You can create from a clipboard, from a web page. You can open, if you have a URL that is an image, you can open it that way too. And you also have a bunch of filters in the create menu. So you'll have to play with these and see what they can do for you. You can make brushes here, patterns, so on and so forth. It's very full of options, and you're going to have to explore to find out something, whether it's something you'll use or not. Save as, save copy. The way that Gimp works is when you go to save something, it's going to save it in its default format, which is XCF. So if we hit Control S to save, it's already going to default to XCF. Consider this a project file. So this will be the file that's untouched in full resolution, no compression, nothing. So this is how you want to do your work. And then when you want to save that file, you can export it. So Control Shift D, or you can do File, Export, whatever works. And see, right now it was probably a ping. No, it should have been a JPEG. Well, regardless, you can change the format here by just typing if we want it as a JPEG, and you'll see JPEG options in a minute, or you can click from the myriad of different formats that Gimp supports down here. But just typing in the proper extension will save it as that. So let's just try that and see export image as JPEG, not ping. It'll give you a default quality. You can even show preview, and I've never used that, and I don't see it either. Anyway, you have different options here. The defaults are great. I normally save everything for fan art right around 96 if it's a JPEG. Every now and then it's a little too big, but that's a great starting point. So we can go ahead and export that. Now you have your select menu, and we're going to go further into these later, but this has everything to do with selecting. So if you want to select a box select and you want to copy, paste that out. Actually, let me get rid of this tab. Close tab. There we go. Go back to our defaults. Alright, I'm going to show that to you again. If we want to select part of an image, we just select it. We can Control Copy, Control V, which will paste. What it does is it pastes this. We could drop this on another existing layer. We can move it and put it back on the same layer. That's why it doesn't create a new layer by default, in case you want to just put it right back on a new layer and move it. And that's what this little anchor will do. It'll pop it right on that layer and make it part. But if we don't, what we can do is just hit the new layer button, and then it'll put it on its own layer. Now if we hit our move, we can see our layer boundary. This isn't as big as the full image. One way we can do that, and there will be times when you need to do this, is layer to image size. And now that layer is as big as the image. Okay, let's get rid of that. Some nifty little things there. Everything that has to do with the image. Mode is very important. You almost always want to be in RGB. You'll find a lot of filters don't work in indexed. Indexed is used primarily in GIF images. But again, we can get in that later. But if you're having problems using filters and such, make sure you're in RGB mode. Transforms, flip, rotate. This will works on the canvas and not the layers, or on the entire image. So everything in the image menu works on the entire image. So keep that in mind. Once you get used to layers, you'll understand. We can add guides by percentages, new guides. I just drag them out. You can even see the properties, color profile. Next is layers. Let's say we want to, let's get more than one layer here, so we can duplicate layers here. You can move layers around. I prefer just to drag them. You can create layer groups, drop them into a new group, and turn that group off with one click. So many things you'll learn to do with layers. You can even change modes, but we're not going to get into that now. So layers, you can scale a layer independently. So I don't have my shortcuts here. So if we go to layer, scale layer, we can change this some. And let's turn off these other ones. You can see that layer is now smaller, and we only worked on that layer. Drag it back up to the top. So then you can move it around. set. I have a shortcut for it, but snap to canvas edges. Bang. Alright. Colors, there's a lot we'll be doing in here, especially levels. But there's auto balancing. There's a lot of auto functions that can help improve an image. I think you'll find once you get used to it, you'll like to do it manually. Color to alpha, very important. Let's take a look at that real quick. Right now the default set it white, and see how it turns everything that's white and it takes all the pixels away. So if we put a new, let's put white underneath. Now if we remove that, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference, but let's take out the red, or a shade of red. One way to do this is just grab the pointer and say, I want to get rid of this red. Okay. And now hit OK. All that red is gone. And you can adjust and do other colors or so on and so forth. It's a good way to get rid of backgrounds in certain situations. Just a very handy tool, and you'll learn to know that. We'll undo that. Your tools is basically everything that's over here plus more if it's not in your tool palette, and nothing really to see there. Your filters, this is where all the good stuff gets done. We can add blurs, and we can sharpen, red eye removal. All the fun toys are in here. Some are really fun, some are just tools that you'll use all the time, and we can get into that later as well. And then back to your windows. I would highly recommend never turning your toolbox off. It gets to be a pain in the butt. It's a good idea to lock it so you don't accidentally drag it, because you can drag tabs away and put them in their own windows. Alright. Oh, and help. This is going to be very important. Gimp has so many filters by default and plugins, and we're going to add a bunch as well, so it'll be a huge list. With this, we can look down through them and we can search them. So if I want to sharpen, we've got sharpen and unsharp mask, and it shows you in the menu path where it is. So it's going to be under images, basically the main image, so it's going to be under filters, enhance. So if we went to filters, enhance, there's sharpen and unsharp mask. So this is, trust me, when you have a lot of filters and a lot of plugins, even if you have a good memory, you're probably going to want to pull this up every now and then and give it a shot. We've got 273 by default, so you can imagine it's going to be hard to keep track of. Alright, well, that's it for now. I just want to get you into it, getting up and doing a few things and understanding a little bit. In the next part, we'll actually try and install some of the filters we'll be using and some plugins before we get on to doing some work. I hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.